Good morning. Good morning. We are live from the Hive. I hope everybody is well. It's Saturday, and I'm glad to see everybody popping in this morning. Much love from the Hive. That was supposed to be the guy fighting with the kangaroo, but it was like a news report. Anyway, echoed back at me, kind of obnoxiously. Good morning, everybody. Hi. Can you hear me? Everything sound okay? Yes, I am live, and we're going to get a little mantis friend out here because I'm feeling a little bit lonely. So I'm going to have my little friend come out and sit with me. Uh, I will be honest with you guys. This is my last mantis. No, how whenever I get a group of mantises and it gets down to the last one, I spoil it. Oh, where you jump into? Did you just jump into my drawer? Oh, nope, he just jumped over there. She's underneath. Anyway, yeah, I sound really good on this really nice microphone. Thank you for whoever got it for me because you are awesome. Um, so anyway, I've been letting the mantis basically free range in this room because there's no reason not to. My room's kind of a mess. Look, there's my dirty pants over there that I took off last night when I climbed in bed because I stayed up super late. And yeah, actually, I fell asleep in the living room watching the new Lord of the Rings series. So I did watch that. It was I fell asleep during the first episode. I'm an old lady, so I can get about 20 minutes into it and fall asleep. I have my critiques. Um, I have my individual ideas about it because by the time that the never mind, I'm not gonna spoilers. There's things about the timeline that don't make sense based on the Silmarillion, which is like one of my favorite books ever written. So I'm going to be critical of the series. I'm sorry because it's based on this is maybe what you could say it's post Numorian. Uh, that's where Aragorn's ancestors come from. Numenor. It was this island in the middle of the ocean that God actually raised up for them because they were the high men. But I say God, I mean uh, Iluvatar was the name of the god. But I'm getting way too deep into the minutia of the character and the mythologies and stuff. I know they have to change it to fit the format. It's different. It's a different format. Let me say hi and good morning to everybody. It's got a good turnout this morning. Sandy's here bright and early. Sandy, I got another plant for my wish list. I have to pot this today, or it's not gonna do well. Um, but check this gorgeous lycopod out. Isn't that cool? This is what trees were like in the Carboniferous. Imagine a forest of these. That's what it looked like. These are not. This is not pine. This is not even related to pine. They do use these to make wreaths, though. Collect and make wreaths. So we'll get this potted today. I just haven't figured out what I'm going to put it in. There's actually enough. I could probably do 2 pots and try to get a couple of them growing. But you all know I love my plants. Very first person I say hi to, and I have to run off and go on a tangent again. Good morning, Sandy and Tobin. Tobin has an electric drum set all set up, so we should be hearing some new rock from Kin Bim fam. So if you like grungy rock music and you like this little skeptical, I guess, atheist community that we're part of, there's our grunge rocker right there, Mr. Tobin Templeman. Ring talking about the Lord of the Rings with me. Yeah, I figured you'd be on the same page as me, and that there's things to say. We got Amy Newman in here this morning. Hey, sweetheart, good to see you. We got Kara J. Hello, Gary Priestley, Mark Caesar, Godless Granny. I just was in the middle of watching your stream. I was working on something, so I wasn't able to watch it live, but I was just actually had it. It's still pulled up on there that I was in the middle of watching it. That's your stream, Kelly. I'm enjoying enjoying your takedown of Frank. So good stuff. Good stuff. Oh, and yeah. Anyway, so good morning, D. I see you. D has joined us. And we can get started now. We were waiting on you, Dee. So yeah, we can get this show on the road. Anyhow, if you don't know, I didn't notice, I did do a like a live from the Hive in the middle of the week. I was talking with Richard Madsen over on Math Pig's channel, right? And he started getting into this idea about the Ark and the way that the animals were kept on the Ark and what animals were kept on the Ark. And it got really interesting. And then we were wrapping up. Huh? The keys for the truck are, hold on just a second. I've got daddy duty. Being a parent, right? Being a parent. I raised him to adulthood though. That's good. This one anyway. He's a good kid. I love my Ian so much. That's one person who always has my back. What a great guy. Good morning, Julie. Hi everybody. Wow, we are filling up this morning. So happy to see all these wonderful faces. So there are a couple of there's not only too much housekeeping going on. I'm still going to tell you the same message I've been saying for the last 2 months. Hopefully I'll have my computer next week and we'll be able to do this like legit live from the Hive. But right now I've found comfort with this format. It's the main thing that I want to be able to do is to be able to talk to you guys and share some cool stuff with you. So if I can continue to do that, I'm not going to complain about not having my cool frames and overlays and all that good stuff. I love my frames and overlays. They're all custom for me. I made a lot of that is my own art. So yeah. Anyhow, moving forward on that. So I'll just keep telling you guys that until it happens. And I'm getting apparently a big corner desk that is getting donated to the cause of the Hive. It's going to go right there and right there. That's going to be the background. And I'm going to work at it too because I don't need 2 desks if I got a big one like that. But I digress. Things to me be looking forward to. The Hive will move on. The Hive will move forward. Yes. Let's rebuild it. I don't know about better than before, but it's going to be great. It's going to be a little something different than what it was before, I think. And that's okay. Yeah, I do like a corner desk too, Julie. So you all know I like following debates, especially in the community. Did anyone here watch the Hovind Bundy debate? Anybody in my audience? I don't know if you did or not. I was disappointed in it. I'd hoped to see someone with credentials in the biological sciences take him on. Jay Bundy is he's a young man. He worked in the Linsky lab, and you all know the Linsky experiment, citrate, right? E. coli, citrate, all that good stuff. Linsky. It was on Steaming for Truth, so don't blame you for not watching it. If you didn't, I know Steaming for Truth is an ally of like Dinosaur Adventureland and all that stuff, where they're producing the most awful hate content on Matt Powell's channel. That studio is putting out this. It's Ken Hovind Studio putting out Matt Powell's video about executing gay people and all that stuff. Same studio. putting that out. So in your any revenue that Dinosaur Adventureland has coming in is going towards the production of that type of content. So if you boycott Standing for Truth for associating with Dinosaur Adventureland, I don't blame you. Okay, I understand that. Now, didn't actually turn into a debate. They actually they did their opening statements, and then the Jay Bundy or Jason Bundy, Jay Bundy, I think is what he likes to call. He kind of conceded everything Kent said from that point on. He just trying to win over Kent and his audience, I guess, was the game that they were playing at. But he started making comments that like phylogenetic trees were nonsense, that the Linsky experiment wasn't evolution. He really did start making these claims publicly, like in front of everybody, in front of Kent and his audience of children that are being subjected to young Earth creationist and anti-evolutionist ideas. This guy who's claiming to be a biologist is sitting up there on the screen telling them that Linsky is not evolution. Linsky experiment's not evolution. That phylogeny and phylogenetic trees specifically are nonsense. It was not well. I did not like that. I thought that it was kind of a dirty move to pull on, especially again. Think of the children, but you all know I'm a parent and an educator at heart, so I do think of the children. I do think of those indoctrinated children sitting in the audience at Dinosaur Adventureland, getting confirmation from Dr. Dino that even the scientists don't believe this stuff. Even the scientists don't actually believe this. That's going to be the message coming out of that place for years to come. In clips of our scientists making these statements are going to be put out. It's going to be used to promote anti-intellectualism and is a flagship of the anti-intellectual movement. That is my problem. So at the end of the conversation, our boy Jay was, I'm friends with Kent Hovind. I'm friends with Standing for Truth, and you be friends with whoever you want to. That's absolutely right. But I do think that you deserve to know what you're promoting. So I did go to a stream like a couple of days afterwards, just to let Jay know. I didn't go into the stream. I was in the side chat just to let him know that I was a former potential guest on an interaction with Kent or with Matt, and just my experience with dealing with them, especially with the the videos that Mr. Powell puts out about me. I just went there to let him know this is the kinds of things these people might do to you, and this was my experience. And oh boy, he blew up on me. He banned me he blocked me from his channel and banned me. He got really upset with me telling him this stuff. So I was there airing grievances. I air my personal grievances, and it really wasn't that. I'm not gonna win in a headbutting contest with Kent Hovind and Matt Powell. I'm not. They got a lot louder of a voice than I do in the communities. They have a lot bigger following. But what I can do is try to help people in our community from walking into interactions with them blindly. So I do reach out when I see somebody in our community, or especially someone who's new or I don't know very well, interacting with Dinosaur Adventureland people blindly, or maybe without a full understanding of what they're getting engaged with. Whatever the case, I was just going there to try to do that, and extend an olive branch from the Hive to his channel, because he's a small channel, right? And yeah, I'm always willing to help, especially science channels where the person's got a PhD. Oh goodness, or going for their PhD for that matter. I have so many friends on uh, YouTube, on Twitter, everywhere in this community that are either have PhDs or working for their PhDs. So, absolutely love supporting that and getting those voices lifted. Those are the people that we should be listening to. So yeah, I reached out because I kind of got the impression that maybe this was a long game that he was playing to get in good with them and then kind of sway them over time. Maybe that is the game, but I'll never find out because I got shut down, silence woman, and kicked out. Then another YouTube creator sent me some content of this campaign against Rebecca from Bread of Life, and I love Rebecca. Rebecca's a great gal. That had literally silenced woman uh, things cut in with her talk, and it was kind of creepy. Anyway, enough about that though. I am cutting into Cryptic Corner time now, and I just want to say that that was disappointing. I don't know how things are going to go moving forward, but we will be having to deal with some of the things that were said in that debate for months to come. So yeah, we shall see. All right, so for Cryptic Corner, we're going to revisit a topic we've done before, not recently though. Today in Cryptic Corner, we are going to be talking about mummies. So I subscribe to, let me pull this up here. I subscribe to Unexplained Mysteries, and that's the one I want. Yep. Okay, and they always bring up the most interesting topics. This might look familiar. We've talked about this little dude right here, right, Ada? It was a topic when we did Alien October last October. What are you doing under there? Mantis is being super cute. It's hiding from you, but where was that? But this one is something else. This bizarre looking creature. Let me read about this, what I have coming into this. Okay, this is how I walked into this story. Controversy surrounds the claims that a prominent researcher has found an alien mummy in Mexico. A story that has been doing the rounds this month concerns an unusual archaeological discovery that was reportedly made in a hillside tunnel in the municipality of Taxco, Mexico. The mummy, along with a number of artifacts, including jewelry, carvings, weapons, tools, were present at the press conference earlier this month by prominent Mexican researcher Pablo Enrique Garcia Sanchez, who was photographed holding the finds in his hands. So Pablo Enrique Garcia Sanchez, prominent is a we'll talk about that in a second. But here's where it gets weird. According to multiple local media sources, the mummy is believed to be some sort of alien creature with a deformed head and abnormal proportions. The problem is this claim cannot be confirmed, and it remains unclear if Sanchez himself has ever actually put forward such a claim, or if the local media is responsible for that. So yeah, this is Sanchez right here, and his whole name is just a list of this is looking this name up, as you can imagine, is quite quite a task, because any two combinations here is a name, any three combinations here is a name. And You put doctor in front of it because he is a doctor, allegedly. I haven't been able to find anything deeper on that. A large skull, also featured in the image, is believed to be a modified domestic pig. As things stand, it's difficult to find anything concrete to explain the photographs. You can check them out yourself on Facebook. Here's the images. We're going to get some better looks at these, so don't worry about that. But these are the odd creatures that we are pulling out. This is the skull. This is the mummy. There's more of them, of course, but when we look at this, and we get some better pictures over in this link here, done with that one. It is a bizarre looking organism, wouldn't you say? I don't know that if we got in and explored this, if this dermis is actually going to match the bones that are wrapped in it. It almost looks like a taxidermy situation that we're dealing with here, like Fiji mermaid style. This could be a primate of some kind. It has 4 fingers. This is the original release. This is where I found it. Dario Presente. It's a Mexican press release. So it's all going to be in Spanish, but we live in 2022, so I can translate it. Just translate that all to English for me, please. Thank you. And it'll be, touch and go. Let me check in with the live chat, make sure everybody's still keeping up with me on what's going on with our weird looking mummies. Yes, you do need your tinfoil hat here. There's alien mummies. When I say alien mummies, tinfoil is implied. You might need a whole tinfoil suit. I would love to see pictures of Mark Reed in a tinfoil suit. That would be amazing. Call him a doctor if you want. I am now officially a lord. Did you buy one of those Scottish little plots? That's cool. I will call you a Lord Caesar. Lord Caesar, that's going to sound freaking amazing. You should start engaging on the debate platform, because Mark Reed is an avid debater. Mark Reed loves debating, so you should start debating as Lord Caesar and demand to be referred to as Lord Caesar on the platform. Here we go. The discovery, they discover alleged alien mummies in Taxo Guerrero. Let's see, a mummy and a skull supposedly from extraterrestrials was found in Taxo Guerrero by military doctor and researcher of ancient culture, Pablo Enrique Garcia Sanchez. It's weird how they never call him doctor in these press releases, though. They just call him an investigator. They call him the doctor, but it doesn't say doctor. But that may be the translation that loses that title. So I'm not gonna say he's not a doctor. I sure he's a doctor. Let's go with that. The investigator revealed that he discovered archaeological remains in a Toxco mine. Toxco, I looked into this because I do research these topics. Toxco is famous for its silver mines, so they've been mining there for a couple of centuries now. So that's the main industry in that region. The doctor Garcia Sanchez identified the mummy as I'm gonna try this word. It looks kind of like maybe like an Aztec word mixed. Sitalamini. That's not too hard. Brother of the stars. So if you don't know, Latin America is kind of famous for these alleged mummy skeletons that have reduced digits, usually 3 or 4 fingers. Weird heads are another feature of them. Just overall, just strange and bizarre anatomy. There's a certain level of craftsmanship craftsmanship that goes into it. Most of them are blatant and look really ridiculous. Like they'll do the 3 fingers, right? It'll just be like this with just that part of the hand cut off, but the wrist bone still indicating that the rest of the hand existed there. I mean, you can tell when digits have been removed from an organism in the preservation process. So it's not something you can really hide. Humanoid mummies and carved skulls. Oh boy. The mummy has a humanoid shape with long legs and arms whose hands have 4 fingers. There you go, 4 fingers. It must be real. While its head has an elongated shape at the top, it seems to be directly connected to the top of the skull. While its head has an elongated shape at the top, that seems to be directly connected to the top of the skull. The head is elongated and connected to the skull. I want to think that maybe they meant that it was directly connected to the torso, like right here. There's like no differentiation between the neck and the head and the torso. Like it's doesn't have a neck basically. Maybe that's what it means. As for the head, it seems that it has some carved marks. It has 2 oversized eye cavities. Yeah, I'm pretty confident with the pig ID on that based on this molar right here that we can see. See that molar? I don't have anything pulled up for. Yeah, maybe I will. Let me see here. Because pig molars are famous for looking like human molars. So when you look at a pig's anatomy, this mouth, we have tusks and molars. Tusks and molars. It's likely that this is a domestic pig due to the foreshortening of the narrow region, because these are all pretty long. But domestic pigs have kind of a pugged face. Let me show you. They are quite unique compared to other porcine specimens with the long. See, you get the longer muzzle, and then when you get into domestics, it starts to get weird. This is a result of the domestication process. Usually I'll talk about domestication leading to a lot of neoteny. That's where animals retain childlike features, but with the inbreeding that comes in hand in hand with the domestication process, some of those inbred features that you'll see in Larazathirs which is like what we see with dogs or lions or anything that's been inbred a lot. That's why you see the pug-faced tigers at the circus and things like that, because they start to develop this facial I don't want to call it a defect, because some people like that about pugs and Shih Tzus and all these dogs that have been interbred for generations, but it smashes their face down. I don't like it. I don't think we should practice it. I think we should breed it, or we should remove it from the bloodline because it's detrimental to the health of the animals. You're basically breeding an animal that's going to suffer with respiratory issues and things for the rest of its life. There's other things I could say about the selective breeding of pigs specifically, but that's a topic for another day. Not to say that I will not get into that, because I may decide to just dance all over why domestication is. Yeah, it could be a tapir. Let me see. Let's look at a tapir skull. You got to remember this one's been carved and modified too. The problem I have with the tapir skull is the distance between. That's a mountain tapir. is the distance between the canines and the incisors and the molars. On this skull, they are super close together. So I'm going with, we could look at also, because peccaries are not pigs specifically. They're suids, but not pigs. But they have a more domed muzzle. It doesn't dip. You see it has a rise and then just goes right into the nearest here. The gap on this skull does match. Let's look. We've got a full picture of that skull somewhere. Is there one down here? There's the skull from the front. I know a better angle of it. Here we go. Okay. So maybe with the proper modification, this could be a peccary skull. I think it's a domestic pig, but anyway, there's other artifacts too that we're going to look at here. So hang in there. This stuff is just getting started here. So that's the skull. That's the mummy. Some claim the both pieces are false or fake. Obviously, the skull's modified. They even claim the skull is a modified domestic pig, but I don't know. It looks like it's supposed to be a piece of cultural art. So I did scrub through YouTube to see if I could find any videos interviewing this guy. The thing is, all of them are about an hour long, and they're all in Spanish. My Spanish is not great, but I did want to. Maybe it was this one. Yeah, I did want to watch just a little bit of it. I'm just gonna leave it muted because they're speaking Spanish and I got it translated here. So these are some of the other artifacts that they talk about here. So where did the artifacts start? I think this is a month ago. So this is before he released the mummy images. So these are just the artifacts that were found with it, but you can see them on that table right there in this initial article. Let me go back because there's a few of them. They're pretty cool looking. I don't know how many of them are legitimate or how many are forgeries or what have you, but here we go. Come on. Yeah, there we go. And these are his slides. Yeah, there's looking at some of the different. I think we could probably speed this up all the way too. There's no sense in it going at normal speed if we're not even having any sound. Come on, get into the artifacts. Results of C14 testing was 50,000 years. What lab did that test? I can't translate this. If anybody else can translate that, go ahead and drop it in the side chat. I do better understanding Spanish. All right, here's a weird skull that they're presenting. This definitely looks like an artistic piece. I wouldn't say that this is an actual alien skull. I think the argument is that this is art made to look like an alien skull. And there's another weird skull. So there's a fascination with skulls, right? I did the peccary skull and the tapir on that. We're looking at some of this wild art, and I'm just popping back over to read. Okay, yeah, my Spanish is really bad. My ex-wife spoke Spanish pretty good, but I like this one. Look at this. We've got a like a chieftain with a headdress thing going on here. We got all these. They look like gray aliens, right, with their big bulbous heads. And this one's like it looks like he's taking one of those little hot sauce bottles they'll give you at the Mexican restaurant if you ask for them, the really hot stuff, and just downing it. That's what it looks like these two are doing. Maybe they're competing to see which one of them can handle the most hot sauce. This one looks like almost like he's dropping it in his eyes. So maybe he's trying to one up this guy, and this guy's like, I'm gonna drink it. And this guy's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna put it in my eye. These two are up to something down there. And so I'm thinking that this bottom section here looks like porn production to me. And I hate to be vulgar about it, but you got these two in the position. This is the cameraman down here getting that the shot from underneath. You got the I don't know what, maybe they're doing a surgery though. It looks almost maybe like they're doing a surgery. So I'm going to go with surgery because that's probably more what this is going to be presented at. I like the idea of him shooting a porno though. Because if you look at it, it looks like this guy's got his head top of his head cut off, and this guy's digging around in there. And this guy's like maybe took something out of this opening here and sitting it over there on the table. And this dude's got the unfortunate task of going in through the back door and seeing what he can pull out there. So I will go with that. Got some ritual dancing stuff looking like it's going on here. Then there was this guy. He doesn't look like the same species as those are. He's got a butt. You just see his butt crack right there. So I don't think this is supposed to be a monkey, because monkeys in South America are really known for their tails, right? So maybe this is like a deity of some kind. The face. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4 fingers. This reminds me of, just looking at this, it reminds me of the Ica stones, and I wonder if it wasn't created in the same manner. So I'm pressing X to doubt on that one. All right, let's keep going through these. Let's see what else. Mr. Garcia Sanchez, Pablo Garcia, Enrique again Sanchez. Yeah, let's see what else he pulls up here. So we got this cool looking Buddha. Oh, sorry, got a little ahead of myself there. Got this cool looking Buddha here with a skull for his belly. This one reminds me of another South American cryptid, the Maplinguari, who is sometimes alleged to be a giant ground sloth. The problem is that it has a stomach, a mouth on its stomach, which no organism has, but this one does. This little statue has a giant skull for a belly. I'm not sure what we have going on here. Got another set of dudes with gray alien pleading. What do you call them? Pleiadian. Well, the Pleiadians are the Nordic people. They're the ones that look like more human-like. They're tall and blonde and are platinum haired. I think these look more like grays to me. What they call them, what's the word? Oh, what's the star system? It's escaping me now because I'm trying to think of it. Reptilii or whatever. Anyway, yeah, this looks like gray aliens to me. Maybe a depiction of them in a a spaceship or something. I don't think these are legit. Just to be clear, I think that Dr. Enrique or Dr. Pablo Enrique Garcia Sanchez is pulling our leg on these. I think this is going to be turn out to be a similar hoax to the Ica stones, but I'm enjoying being on the ground floor of it. So hang in there. We're probably gonna see more of this. Let's see what else we got here. I'm sure he's going into details about this. Ooh, so we got the Cyclops, which may be Plankton from SpongeBob with that big old eye in the middle. So that would be, if this organism existed and if its head was human size, this would be the biggest eye in the animal kingdom, by far. This is also bizarre looking. This on the left here, I do see a face. Now this one might be a Pleiadian, maybe. Zeta Reptilius or Reptili. It's named after the star system that they're supposedly from, a binary star system. I can't remember the name of it right now because my brain's doing that thing where as I try to think of it, it slips away like an eye floater when you try to focus on it. But it'll come to me. The Zeta part came back to me. I just sometimes Bree jams her head full of too much stuff and can't keep up. All right, then we got some weaponry. These are supposed to be ritual knives and stuff, but look who we have on there. Look at the face we have on there. Another gray alien. Another tool. Also trying to focus on the alien characteristics. Here we go. Here got a xenomorph eating corn. And a knife. Or maybe that's Chatterer from Hellraiser. It kind of does look like Chatterer from Hellraiser, except for Chatterer didn't have eyes. But regardless, it's eating corn. You want to play that the new corn song that's been going over big on TikTok? Play it about this image too. This guy's like totally into corn. Look how happy he is to have his corn to eat. Zeta Reptilians, or Zeta Reptilians, apparently. Thank you. That's the term I was trying to think of that was slipping off my tongue. Now this, isn't it interesting that this little skull here kind of resembles the mummy that they would find in the coming weeks, or that they would come forward with in the coming weeks. And you have this this entity here with the big head. Two heads. Apparently, it's connected together like cat dog. Interesting. And then we have. Now that one actually looks like it. I don't know. And I'm not an archaeologist. I can't say what's legit here or not. Where's Pat when I need him? But yeah, these are more of these alleged artifacts from the find in Mexico where this mummy was found, allegedly. Here's another little alien dude on the side. The fact that all of these artifacts have the aliens and stuff on them is what makes me think it's a hoax, honestly. Because, they finding something like that would be like a needle in a haystack. Every piece of art that these people produced depicted gray aliens on it, depicted these whatever, because these are not the same. These are not the same entities. The eyes are the only thing that even remotely look the same. These guys have barely any nose or reduced mouth. Grays are like a human with are all the features reduced except for the eyes, and the eyes are huge and black. what we see here is almost like a demonic face with an upturned nose, a mouth with teeth and pointed ears. And there's been both of these organisms presented in different depictions on this art so far. What's interesting about this one is some of these features are very bat-like and like remind me of like how the vampires are depicted and stuff when they turn into bats. And you see like there's these two little amulets above it also are bats. So I don't know that this is supposed to be anything more than just a bat, maybe a bat deity. What's the Mexican bat deity's name? Let me see. I don't know if it was the same for the Aztecs and the Mayans. Yeah, Camazotz. Camazotz was a deity that was bat-like, and there's a lot of cool art depiction of him. Let me just try looking them up with Camazotz to avoid the more Batman kind of stuff. Maybe not, because the Batman stuff still shows up. I would like to find actual art of Camazotz. Here's some stuff. Yeah. So there's like having a deity that has a bat head is pretty normal in Mesoamerican art, but that doesn't necessarily look exactly the same, though. I wouldn't be surprised if all of this was not forgeries, but again, we will keep an eye on it. I just wanted to share this with the Hive. I am Batman. All right. What else do we got? We're about done here. Alien face down in the bottom of this hole. But that might even be just periodola, because it's not real clear. All right, that's the last one. Okay, so we're going to bounce out of there. Oh, nope, that's the next segment. We're not ready for that yet. Nope. Stop. Yes, we are going to do a history of life with Genesis history in just a moment, but we're going to have to wrap up this mummy talk real quick. So, what is Bree's predictions on this? I am going to predict that this is likely the skull of a suiform. I'm not going to discount a tapir, but I do think that this is a suiform. It could be a peccary. It could be a domestic pig. I'm leaning towards domestic pig, and a more recent origins for it, probably carved within the last 100 years. That's my prediction. As far as the artifacts, I think that maybe there's some real artifacts mixed in here, but I would say that most of these appear to be hoaxes that are fabricated. Again, happy to be proven wrong. And lastly, our little mummy. I think that this could be it's huge is the problem. I don't think it's a primate that's native to North America. Unless the forearms have been foreshortened on a spider monkey or howler monkey, which are the larger of the monkey species of the Western world. And this would be the size of an adult. Any of those. The hind limb proportions and body proportions, even the rib count kind of confirms that it could be, but what bothers me is the forelimbs are far too short. However, the four fingers is also an indication that this is because they're so primates, pretty much all primates have 5 fingers and 5 toes, like as a rule, except for spider monkeys and woolly spider monkeys, because they had to be different. And they lost a digit, which makes it because they have like really specialized arboreal hands for swinging through the trees. They spend all their lives in trees. They're the one. Spider monkeys also have the prehensile tail, of course, and woolly spider monkeys. Howler monkeys are a close relative that get this size as well. But they could have howler monkeys do have shorter forelimbs, and they could have potentially removed digits or even replaced howler monkey's hands with spider monkey hands. Things like that are not unheard of. I don't see any stitching marks on this, but I also don't see any facial features, which is odd. It's odd that any mummy, regardless of what the species is, would not have cavities for breathing, for consuming food, for seeing, for hearing. Not to say that all organisms have to have all of those things, but at least some. To some level, this tetrapod would need to breathe. This is a tetrapod. It has 4 limbs. I am 100% sure that the organism itself or the organisms that it's fabricated from and manufactured from are completely mammalian. I don't think that there's anything in here that's not a mammal. I think it's my opinion, based on what I'm seeing here, that this is a primate. But beyond that, I don't want to identify too much about it or what I think it could be. I'm speculating that it's a chimera of New World monkey, maybe even Old World monkey species. But time will tell. This is not the end of this tale unless this find disappears into the chronicles of history, never to be examined again. I also don't believe that any of these items discovered are 50,000 years old via carbon dating. I am doubting that. So that is my opinion on these Toxco Mexico mummy and the artifacts associated with it. Thank you for joining me in Cryptic Corner. We always appreciate you coming in on Friday nights and hanging out with us. Please remember to be kind, take care, and we'll see you next time. All right. Now, now back to live from the Hive. Had to close out Cryptic Corner. As soon as I get my computer back, I'm going to have a whole log of Cryptic Corner episodes to edit and get out there to the to opiate the masses, as they say. When they can breed a fuzzy spider to be 1 or 2 inches long, I want one. Down like a jumping spider? You want a pet jumping spider? Yeah, I think it's modern art too. I think most of it is modern. It all looks modern to me. But yeah, that was an interesting topic. Thanks for hanging in there. I've been following that for the last few days and was kind of waffling about doing a show on it. I didn't think it was going to be big enough to cover the time period, but between talking about the different speculative origins of the artifacts and the skulls and the mummy, really did fill out the time. As I was saying earlier, we are going to be looking at is Genesis history. And boy, oh boy, are we going to have some fun with this. So, who's ready for some creation watch? Who is ready to let me pull up here? Yeah, it's they call them the black-handed spider monkeys, Jeffrey's spider monkeys, the ones that live in the Yucatan. And yeah, that is about the right size. The arms are too short for a spider monkey is my only gripe. Yeah. All right, here we go. Let's go full screen. Let me know how the audio is.
The antediluvian epoch ended with the flood, and it ended suddenly. says in scripture.
So, so you got like 1 second sentence in. I want to say the antediluvian epoch is archaic and not a term used anymore because of our not even new, because of our understanding of deep time. These are that was during the Victorian era where using terms like antediluvian kind of went out of style. Now it did cling around a long time because books up until the second half of the 20th century. We got a book published. It hung around for a long time with the old terminology. So there would have been books up into the 60s that referred to antediluvian time periods, but that's not been something that was scientifically understood for at least a couple hundred years.
On the same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up over the entire planet Earth. What's associated with the flood event is a series of events of unbelievable power. Superquakes, for example, much bigger than modern quakes. For example, at the beginning of the flood, we think this breakup of the fountains of the great deep involved an earthquake that lasted for about 4 to 5 hours at a time, rather than usual earthquakes lasting only a few seconds, maybe 20 seconds for the big ones. This one would have required that much time to crack the earth, hours to crack the earth, the duration, and collapsing the edges of the.
So when you talk about something like this, it always brings up, in my mind at least, the Russian traps or Siberian traps. So at the end of the Permian period, right before the Triassic started, right before the age of the dinosaurs, the Mesozoic was marked by this massive extinction event. I'm talking, it was the most devastating that the Earth has ever seen. That makes the ones that the dinosaurs died out on look like a hiccup. The Great Dying, the Permian Triassic extinction event that ended the Paleozoic era, was so devastating that in some areas it killed up to 90% of organisms. I think in the oceans, it was the devastation was even worse. However, we got to keep in mind that this was caused by just that area of Siberia. We call it that's the leading theory anyway. I shouldn't say it is. It's understood from the evidence that was the cause of this extinction event, was just that one little area cracking open, like he's talking about happening on a global scale in the during the flood. So this would have been that would have been a world killer for the Russian, for something like I keep calling them Russian traps, the Siberian traps that open up everywhere. There's just no, there would, and to try to say that there would be liquid water in that state is completely ridiculous. You open up the earth that many places to the thermal devastation hidden within. That water is not staying liquid very long.
Continents in the process. This flood seems to have eroded thousands of feet off the surface of the continents, thousands of feet of sediment, critters and plants and sediment and rocks taken off the top of the continents, and then ultimately dumped later on top of the continents again.
It vaporized rocks or powdered rocks into sediment, but it did not break that wooden boat or that wooden box.
Plates move horizontally across the surface of the Earth at meters per second in the course of a single year, crossing hundreds of miles of distance. Those continents would collide with each other with enough force to actually raise mountains tens of thousands of feet into the air. It's during this period of time that the continents smashed together to form the great supercontinent called Pangea. But this supercontinent was formed during the flood, covered with water. It was a supercontinent, it was never above water. The sinking of the ocean crust during this period. 70% of the Earth's surface, the rocks on the Earth's surface, sank directly into towards the center of the Earth, landing ultimately at the bottom of the mantle, thousands of kilometers beneath the surface. The separation of plates, as some plates were falling into the center of the Earth, we have plates that are moving apart. Hot material from the mantle is coming up, contacting ocean water, vaporizing ocean water, and catapulting it hyperballistically up in the atmosphere thousands of miles. This is along a 50,000-mile line around the Earth several times.
Right, that would just destroy all life on Earth. I agree with your proposition. This was an event that would have killed everything, or at least pretty much everything. So maybe in some pockets that something like a tardigrade or some organism that's really hardy like that could maybe survive an event like this. but your wooden box full of animals is not going to make it.
Creating hyperglade geysers, geysers that are miles high, and creating new seafloor, a new rock at the bottom of the floor, and heating up the oceans of the flood, a total of about 20 degrees centigrade in the course of the flood.
And we don't see this. There's no evidence that this is what's happened. So your book claims that we should see evidence had super geysers in all the earth. We had huge rifts between plates. That we had floodwaters surging fast and hard enough to powder the rocks, to destroy rocks and turn them into all the sediment on all the world, everywhere. But we have a little wooden boat that's surviving that. I keep calling it a boat. It's just a box. There's nothing. The reason I call it a boat is because the way it's always presented is with a stern and a keel and everything, and it's not described that way. It's described as a big rectangle. So all the high hills under the whole heavens were covered with the rifting that you're talking about happening with the tectonic plates. We should see some mountain building. So there should be just with the descriptions that you're giving of the way that these plates are moving against each other and pulling away and pushing against each other. We should see a lot of mountain ranges rising and falling. So there should be evidence of that along these rifts.
As this happened, the ocean floor lower before the flood because the rocks were cool, now higher during the flood as the hot molten material came in to replace it, displaced water from the oceans onto and over the continents, covering all the high hills under the whole heaven, killing all of the organisms of the land in the process, except those that were preserved in the ark. The sediment that was ripped off the top of the continents, thousands of feet of sediment, is carried across the world, probably several times over the world, and then ultimately buried on top of the continents.
So with that, we would expect to see certain characteristics in the layering of sediments. Now, the weird thing about your claim here that's just all is wrapped around the earth a couple of times and then dropped. Why that's so wild is because we have layers of ecosystems, it's not just a mixed mash of sediment. There's the fossil record's not just, oh, here's a dinosaur bone, here's a woolly mammoth tusk, here's mosquito and amber. It's entire ecosystems preserved in these layers. It's not just this animal and that animal. There's plants and pollens and fungus and spores and so many different factors that express what this land was at that point in time, in deep time in history. And it was, this was a forest. It wasn't, it's not a forest in a desert, in a plain, in a tundra, all mixed together in this slurry and dropped. This was a forest that stood in this location. And then then you'll have another layer on top of it that maybe it was a desert, or maybe it was a seabed. Maybe there was a forest and another layer came on. It was a seabed, and we have millions of years of coral buildup. And then the next layer, maybe it was a desert or something with desert organisms, with sand dunes. We can see these different ecosystems. So it's not just organisms or evidence of different biomes all mixed together, but they're literally biomes that were an established ecosystem for millions of years that we can look at and understand stacked on top of each other. That's where your model fails.
Thousands of feet of sediment draped across entire continents, each layer hundreds of feet thick, thousands of feet above current sea level, sourced thousands of miles away, laid down by east to west currents across the continent. All of these processes, none of these processes are anything like the processes that are going on today. In the process, God has done this, has created this mechanism to destroy all humans and land animals on the surface of the earth, except those on the ark itself. It buried then in the process those sediments that are laid across the continent.
Keep in mind what I said about the Permian extinction event. Now, because it kills all the land animals. The events these talking about are detrimental to the oceans. Do you think that just because the plates that are always depicted in media are terrestrial plates, that there's not plates under the ocean that are going to flash boil all the organisms living in the sea.
Billions upon billions of organisms. The organisms of the shallow ocean before the flood, the organisms of the land, the organisms
Not just the shallow oceans, all the oceans, the shallow open oceans, the deep oceans. Being deep in the ocean does not protect you from the heat that's going to be generated by this event that you're talking about.
that fly or flew above the surface, tried to fly above the surface during the flood. Eventually, all of those are taken up by the flood. It probably, first of all, took the marine organisms and buried them, and then moved onto the land, burying the land ecosystems one at a time. During the same time, we've got evidence of
burying the land ecosystems one at a time. In what way? Because ecosystems aren't like layered, like in real time. There's a desert and a prairie are on the same sea level. A forest and a prairie can be at sea level, or any of these can exist at any level. I mean, when you get into certain heights, yeah, you're like alpine prairie or alpine forest and things like that. But why are you claiming like different like biomes are stacked at elevation points? The biomes have a lot of different factors that come in. There's precipitation, temperature, position in relation to the equator, position in relation to the poles, positions in relation to distance from the next largest body of water. Water can't just lay them down in individual layers. It's just silly.
Meteorite impacts on the Earth. A very large number of meteorite impacts are occurring during this year-long flood. We see the same sort of effects on the moon. The Earth and the moon are being pelted with meteoritic impacts, a very large number in a very short period of time, which suggests that the flood is even bigger than the Earth itself. Where these meteorites are coming from is somewhere outside the Earth-Moon system. That suggests that perhaps the entire solar system is involved. It seems to be confirmed by the fact that Venus's surface rocks have been relatively recently overturned. They seem to date the overturn of those rocks at about the same time that the Earth was hit by this global flood. So it could be that Venus experienced a catastrophe at the same time the Earth did, which rather than sinking 70...
Oh, I love when they speculate like this. Goodness, did Venus experience a catastrophe at the same time as Earth did? And if so, were there organisms on Venus that Yahweh was trying to wipe out? Is that the claim? Are we doing some speculative theology here? Fun. I hope he goes into this a little bit more.
Percent of the surface of the planet, which is the case on Earth, it actually sank 100% of the surface of Venus, an even bigger catastrophe for Venus. On Mars, there's evidence that at least 10 to 15% of the surface was resurfaced at about the same time, which again confirms the fact that this event seems...
Mars, Moon, Venus. Did they have organisms that God was trying to wipe out to start over? Oh my gosh, that's what I want to know.
Bigger than the Earth alone. It was cosmic. It may, in fact, have included the entire universe, which would make sense because the flood was a judgment upon human sin, and humans were created to be the kings over the entire creation, not just the plants and the animals and the Earth itself, but the entire creation.
Were there things on those other planets though? That's what I want to know. Does Kurt Wise think that there were organisms that Yahweh was making disasters on other heavenly bodies to wipe out as well? That's what I want to know. This is exciting.
So when man sinned and had to be judged, the entire creation is impacted. What follows the flood is what I call the Arphaxadian epoch. Arphaxad was born, according to the Bible, 2 years after the flood. He lives for 400 years. So the period of centuries following the flood is a period of the Earth recovering from the effects of the flood. And that world was a radically new world, quite unlike the world that came before. Continents have been rearranged. Some continents are probably gone from the pre-flood world. The land is completely resurfaced with thousands of feet taken off the previous continents and thousands of feet of sediment put on these new continents. There would be new places there's nothing probably that you can recognize from the pre-flood world. Mountains are all different. The rivers are different. The plains are different. The coastlines are different. Everything is new on this world. The ocean is warmer. It's 20 degrees or 68 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than it was before.
Where are these numbers coming from? The ocean's warmer after the flood. What are the measurements that you're using for the oceans before the flood, Kurt? I don't. What passage of the Bible tells us what temperature the ocean was before the flood? If you're not using the Bible, what measurements are you using, and why are you using them, and why are you if you're willing to use whatever scientific measurements you're using to make this claim, why do you approve of those but disregard the ones that predict like an old Earth, even an old Earth from your model, like that this happened billions of years ago? But yeah, funny that.
This would generate a lot of precipitation, a lot more than the present, creating a lot of precipitation over the land.
I do like that word though, Aphrodisian, Arphidaxian, Arphaxidian. He said it a second ago. A wild word. I guess that's a biblical character that they're naming that after. But this is the period of time when this is the period of time when they delivered the kangaroos and koalas and stuff to Australia, and they delivered the sloths to South America and anteaters. They delivered penguins to Antarctica, all from the Middle East.
Creating a wet climate over the entire surface of the Earth. So probably for a time, we're talking about a tropical climate everywhere across all of the continents of the Earth, regardless of latitude. Now, life had been...
Well, what about organisms that require a cold climate to thrive in? There are organisms like ice worms, for instance, that just can't live without ice. There are creatures specialized to live in Antarctica that don't live anywhere else, really. That need that frigid water to thrive. The colossal squid, for instance, lives in Antarctic waters, and it cannot survive in water temperatures above. I'm gonna give these in Fahrenheit. I'm sorry to my anybody who's not an American, but at 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Someone convert that for me for my friends in the UK and elsewhere. They can't. Colossal squids die in the temperatures above that. All of them would die.
Completely decimated. And when we're talking about land animals, the only thing left of each of the land barometers were 2 individuals or 7 that were on the ark. The original diversity, which may have been hundreds and even thousands of species within created kinds, is now reduced to maybe 1 species. And so we have to recover all of this original diversity very quickly.
Yep, and this is the rapid evolution. This is their evolutionary model that is bizarre. They're like, oh, these organisms could not have possibly evolved this many differences over the billions of years since life began. But every species of cat, from tiger to house cat, was able to diversify within this 400-year period that Wise is talking about here.
The life is also geographically very sequestered. The land animals in particular, the only place they exist is where the ark landed. When the ark landed and the people and the animals got out, that's the only place the land animals existed. They're going to have to recover. They're going to have to spread out from the ark. Probably only a few thousand individual animals and Brahmins or created kinds are represented, and they're sitting there in the Ararat Mountains of the Middle East.
Right, that's the joke, right? You got every kind, I always thought it said Brahmins. I guess it's Brahmins. Whatever, Kurt. Brahmins. So all these Brahmins are sitting here in the Middle East. You got penguins, and you got sloths, and you got kangaroos, and you got grizzly bears, and you got seals, and yeah, what's going on, Kurt?
Recovery from the flood would have been a long process, taking centuries. It'd be difficult on everyone and everything involved.
You said it was 400 years, right?
Recovery was probably a waning process. The recovery was probably very rapid at first and decreases as time goes on. So at the end of the flood, you've got a very wet earth. The earth is covered with water. It's going to dry slowly with time. The flood involved probably the most powerful earthquakes in Earth history. Following the flood, those earthquakes are going to decrease in power and frequency following the flood. The storms, the flood itself was probably the most incredible storm in Earth history. And what they find following the flood is a waning of the intensity of storms following the flood. So we've got geology going on here. We got volcanoes, we've got earthquakes that are very catastrophic, very powerful, many times modern power and intensity immediately following the flood. And then,
He really wants to go on about how powerful these earthquakes and volcanoes were. That's not my questions. That's one where I'm not like, I doubt you on that. I believe in powerful volcanoes and earthquakes. I want to know how you are proposing that the organisms disperse to their current locations, Kurt.
slowing down during the Arphaxadian epoch to the modern levels. In fact, it would be fair to say that modern geologic process, modern volcanoes, modern earthquakes are really still the leftover remnants of the flood. They're still slowing down in frequency. They're still waning in power, but we're still in, technically, the geology of the flood, since it's only about 4,500 years ago. Horizontal tectonics stop this motion of continents that are moving very quickly across the surface of the earth during the flood. It slows down and stops in this Arphaxadian epoch. As things cool down and reshuffle.
It hasn't stopped now. Tectonics hasn't stopped.
It might actually move a little bit following this. In the present, we have tiny motions, very slow motions of continents. It probably is, again, a leftover remnant of the pre-flood conditions. We then have the institution of a different type of geology, and most of the geologic activity that's going on during the flood is the motion of continents horizontally following the flood. We now have the vertical adjustment of the land. Places that a whole bunch of stuff has been dumped on top of that wasn't there before are going to sink down because of the weight of the material. Places that have been eroded with less material than was there before are going to rise upward to isostatically rebound from the to the condition that they really want to be. Kind of like a bunch of ice cubes thrown into the water. If you push an ice cube down there and let it go, it's going to bob upward by isostatic equilibrium, isostatic rebound. And so land that was pushed down during the flood or was eroded during the flood is going to rebound upward. Land that was piled up with too much stuff, like the formation of mountains, will drop during the post-flood period, the Arphaxadian epoch. And so we've got...
Again, you want to talk about these crazy geological claims of what's happening in this epoch, which, as far as I know, there's no evidence for. There's no evidence for this epoch or a period of time where land was rising and falling rapidly, and that there were there are periods of times where there were earthquakes and volcanoes and things more so than there are now. But I don't know if they exist in this little 400-year period 3,000 years ago.
Since this event was only 4,500 years ago, and the surface of the earth...
4,500 years ago. I'm sorry, Kurt.
The upper layers are so viscous. They don't move very quickly. There's still motion, even 4,500 years later, from the flood itself. So, whereas this motion probably...
What is the evidence that motion is the flood? I would like to see evidence of that.
Will equilibrate in 20 or 30,000 years. It hasn't been that long since the flood. So there's still places on the earth where things are moving up and down, unexplained in the conventional dating things, like the Appalachian Mountains should be moving. They are 3 million years old, according to conventional dating. But if they were formed during the flood, which I believe they were, they are only 4,500 years old. That would explain why the Appalachian Mountains are experiencing earthquakes in this rebound fashion. They shouldn't be if they're old. They are because they were actually formed during the flood. Climatologically, the warm oceans produce that heavy rainfall over all of the continents. This would produce probably something very much like a tropical rainforest over most of the world. It also has a lot of rainfall.
And that would be detrimental to most of the organisms in the world, right? Most of the organisms cannot survive in a tropical rainforest condition. Most animals don't thrive in those conditions. If everything was tropical rainforest at that time for this, again, I think he said 400 years, for this period of 400 years, we would expect to see a massive dying off of all organisms. And not to mention that if we had evidence that the world was a tropical rainforest just 4,500 years ago, there would be absolute evidence of that. There would still be remnants of the trees. There would still be evidence, because tropical rainforests, when they break down, leave a very distinct signature. There's no question when we find a rainforest biome in the fossil record, just because of the nature of them. I mean, South America is very rich with them, especially right after the KT extinction event, when the temperature heated up so much. And yeah, we did have a place on the planet or an area of the planet, and the planet itself that was a lot hotter and more humid at that time. And it did produce giant reptiles and things of that nature. So if that was on a global scale, just a few thousand years ago, we'd definitely be able to detect it, because we can detect it from 60,000 years or 60 million years ago with our current technology.
Also, you're going to do a lot of erosion during this period, creating thick sedimentary units that are formed over vast areas. And we see some examples of that. It's also going to fill up areas in the middle of the continents with water, creating vast lakes on the continents, we call pluvial lakes. We see that there's evidence of lakes that's backed up above what is now the Grand Canyon, lakes that reached up into Wyoming. Even from there, these lakes would fill up with water, overtop their dams, break out their dams, catastrophically cut out their dams, producing canyons such as the Grand Canyon.
And it's true that lakes did that. Lake Azazi, Lake Missoula, a lot of these lakes towards the end of not necessarily just the last ice age, but the last few ice ages, resulted in a lot of these lakes breaking open their ice dams as the world warmed, and spilling huge amounts of water at amazingly sonic speeds across the land that did crush rocks and dig canyons and things of that nature. The Grand Canyon is not believed to have been created that way, though. It's very distinct characteristics that we look for when we are examining one of these floodplains, like what we see in the Badlands. You see very clear evidence of this rapid flooding and rapid erosion of the rocks. That's not what the Grand Canyon demonstrates.
And other canyons of similar nature during this period of time. The evaporation that produced the heavy rainfall on the continents is going to cool the oceans during this period, which is consistent with what evidence we have, evidence from the shells of sea creatures, that the oceans cool during this period following the flood. The continents cool. The continents always also begin to dry off. So you get in North America, for example, a transition from forests across the entire continent to gradually the development of grasslands in the center of the continent. And organisms are changing.
Right. Yeah. And Ring, definitely shout out. The Missoula floodplains are freaking wicked looking. I would love to go see them sometime. And John Hudson, there's channels and distinct characteristics that indicate the rapid flooding event that we're talking about, the type of rapid flooding event that we're talking about. The Grand Canyon does not display any of those.
Changing at the same time and adapting to that, and actually changing to be able to eat the grasslands. At the same time, while the oceans are cooling, eventually the precipitation falls in some places, the tops of mountains and certain colder regions of the earth, in the form of snow. It's coming down so fast that it can't melt during the.
So we're just now getting grasslands, but we have all of these grazer species that are climbing off the ark hungry. What are they going to eat while we're waiting on this all to calm down so we actually have some grass?
The summer periods of time, and so it accumulates into great ice sheets over the Hudson Bay and eastern North America region like that, and in the mountains and in Antarctica, producing very thick ice sheets, miles thick. And then finally, there's a point at which the oceans cool so much that there's no longer a lot of precipitation, especially over the cold glaciers, and the glaciers stop accumulating. At this point, the ice is so thick that the ice actually collapses under its own weight, surges outward, spreads across the continents around it, producing continental glaciation, which in North America reaches down into.
Keep that in mind. He's making the claim that the glaciations that we've experienced over the last few million years, what we call the ice ages, all happened within this little 400-year period. That the ice literally rose up and smashed down just in that short time and spread glaciers all over the northern hemisphere. Wild, right?
What is now the United States, all the way to the Ohio River and the Missouri River in the south, then quickly melts back because it's reaching down too far into too warm an area, but it's melting a lot of ice very rapidly, producing a huge amount of water that produces another set of canyons and lakes and eroding beautiful canyons as a consequence. During all this period of time, while all this is happening geologically and climatologically, organisms are spreading out from the ark, and they're recovering the diversity that existed within Burons through intrabaraminic diversification. Now, God is the one.
Intrabaraminic diversification. Is that word going to pop up on the screen?
That shows the organisms that got onto the ark, so he knows good and well what the earth is going to be like after the flood. So he's going to choose organisms probably that are well suited for that warm, wet climate that follows the flood. And he's going to choose organisms that can quickly multiply, move out from the tower, from the region of the ark, and fill the earth as they were supposed to.
Yeah, how though? That's the question: is how? You got to answer that. Good morning, Scott Duke.
This had to happen rapidly because God wants us to see His nature in those things that are made. So I believe He has designed into organisms this diversification to occur very rapidly in a matter of just a few centuries. So while geology is recovering, biology is able to recover in the same period of time.
So is Kurt Wise like? Is he promoting like Cincoism? Like there, so everything had to be. He said God created and saved everything that would be fit for this tropical climate that was going to be post flood, right? So he made like this tropical bear. Okay, he made this tropical bear and saved it on the ark. It thrives in tropical climates. So what Kurt is saying is that within this little, again, 400-year period after the flood that he's talking about, this epoch that he's named Aphodaxian or whatever, that the tropical jungle rainforest bear that thrive in warm tropical climates moved into the tundra in 400 years and evolved into a polar bear with its transparent hairs and webbed feet, all these aquatic or semi-aquatic features that it's developed to help it prey in that environment on seals and things of that nature. In that little 400-year period, the bear changed that much from this little tropical bear to this massive polar bear that eats seals. Now, if that was genetically possible to do in that short time frame, we should see speciations happening all the time. Anytime an organism's environment changes, we shouldn't see them dying off or moving out of the area. We should see them rapidly adapting to the changing biome. We don't see that. We don't see that at all. We don't see organisms evolving into, from what I think when I say a tropical bear, it's like a sloth bear into a polar bear. Though that level of changes from a house cat to a Siberian tiger, that we don't see that happening. Why did it stop? What mechanism said, okay, now everything's diversified enough? Let's stop. Let's take away the ability of these animals to change to make these physiological changes within just a couple generations. Let's take that away now. What happened? When did God do that?
God commands the organisms to reproduce, multiply, and fill the earth, and that is exactly what they do. In some Brahmins, the number of species increases 100-fold. In others, Brahmins, it increases 1,000-fold. In others, even 10,000-fold. During the height of this period of time, there are probably new species appearing on the earth on an hourly basis. It is happening very rapidly. But it's not happening by the conventional method of evolution. It's happening by revealing genetic information along pre-programmed genetic paths. And this explains such things as interspecific hybrids, vestigial organs, genetic throwbacks, breeds, stratomorphic intermediates, trajectories, and so on and so forth that we've talked about earlier in the course. During this.
Okay, a lot was dropped there. It happened then, doesn't happen now. New species every hour. So I gotta say, the arguments that I mostly hear against our model, against the mainstream evolutionary model, is that there isn't enough time for the diversification we see within organisms. Now you're saying, but new species can be created every generation.
This period of time, because it's warm oceans and cold continents, an organism can actually move around the world wherever it wanted to go in its desired temperature regime by following the continental edges. At the same time, you can also cross oceans.
But there were still, hold on. Hey, Matt Powell, I know you watch all my stuff. I need you to listen to this next section here, okay? Because this shows that even other creationists think you're a moron.
During this time, on, I believe, vegetation rafts. During the flood, the world's forests were overcome by the flood. Many of those trees were in fact buried or destroyed in the course of the flood. But probably billions upon billions of trees, in fact, floated through the flood and would float for decades and centuries following the flood. So as the wind of the post-flood world, which would be probably quite substantial given the temperature differences in the world.
See, that's the thing I'm saying here is that, yes, vegetation mats are a real thing that carry organisms across vast oceans. Now, the question I have for you moving forward is, why did all the marsupials get on the vegetation mats to go to Oceania, Australia and such? All the Xenotherians, they all got on a raft to go to South America. Why are these the same kind? Then are all marsupials the same kind? They went through this diversification process. There's like a basal marsupial that landed in Australia and then diversified in this rapid diversification process you're talking about with new species every hour. Is that how that happened, or did it just so happen that, or was somebody standing at the edge of the Southeast Asia with a checklist, it's only letting marsupials get on the vegetation mat to get down to Australia?
The wind of the post-flood world would actually create currents in the oceans, which would move these great, huge rafts of vegetation around the ocean. So animals could actually get on these rafts, cross the oceans, get off the rafts on the other side, and thus move very effectively to all of the continents of the world. For humans, again, it's a wild world. It's one that's completely unfamiliar to them. Nothing looks the same as it did before the flood. But we're told in the Bible that modern humans are descended from Noah. And we can see the evidence of this in the fact that there's mitochondrial DNA suggests that there is a common ancestor not very long ago. Y chromosome data also that humans have a common ancestor.
Not very long ago. What's the time frame on that, Kurt? Are you gonna elaborate on those time frames when you say not very long ago? Are you gonna explain that to us? I want to know how long ago you think it was, because not very long ago, Y chromosome, DNA evidence. So I want to hear what you have to say. Are you gonna give a date?
Not long ago, in terms of thousands of years. Now, unlike the animals that were commanded to
In terms of thousands of years.
disperse across the earth and fill the earth, humans didn't obey God's command. They stayed in one place, in the place they called Babel, and they built a city and began building a tower. These people did not. So during the period that they're staying in that place, probably not far from where the ark landed, animals are getting to all places in the world. So we've got the evidence of fossils of animals in the post-flood world.
So in the days of Babylon, so we're talking about the Tower of Babel and Babylon. In the days of Babylon, there were still animals dispersing, and they didn't know marsupials stayed in Asia. Every kind of marsupial got on that vegetation raft and went to Australia. And one species or one kind, I guess, would have went to South America, because I don't know in this model if Australia, Antarctica, and South America were connected like they were in our model, but yeah.
They're getting to every continent of the world, and humans still aren't seeing yet. It is not until this Babel event, when God decides to split up the languages of the people, that humans then disperse from Babel at this point. That's when I think we find the first human fossils. When we find the first human
possums. Okay, so the Virginia possum. There's a couple of species of possums in that clade that did migrate into North America. They did not do so till fairly recently to what they call the North and South America Pleistocene interchange, where we swapped some organisms, and possums are one of the ones that made it up here in North America and actually managed to eke out a living and survive, and they actually thrive up here because there's not a lot of competition for the niche that they fill, because their low metabolism makes them capable of eating some stuff that other organisms might get sick from, and also prevents them from getting certain pathogens and like rabies, and also makes them less susceptible to things like ticks. They are related to the marsupials of Australia, but only distantly. There's other clades of marsupials in South America as well that made it there via so to be clear, let's say that our understanding is that marsupials evolved in Gondwanaland in the area that we call South America now. They thrive there. They did diversify and move into Antarctica. Had a mostly marsupial mammal population for most of the last 50,000 years, or not 50,000 years, sorry, 50 million years. And so did Australia. Now, when Gondwanaland broke up, the marsupials in South America did not fare well and kind of just hung on in their little isolated niche groups that they still feel today. But some of them were more more gregarious and made it into other niches as well and kind of diversified. And yeah, as I was saying, made it up to North America. But generally speaking, in their model, where after the flood, all the continents are basically where they are now, the marsupials would have had to all these different kinds of marsupials would have had to all went to Australia, except for a couple of clades that went over into the Western world, which is kind of peculiar when you think about it.
Fossils, they're spread across the old world, from Spain to South Africa to China.
Have a good one, John Hudson.
They then, at this point, are spreading across the continents as they were supposed to do in the first place. It's also at Babel where God creates the basic language groups, probably something on the order of several score languages at this point. That would explain the major language groups that we have on the present world. It's also during this period when people separate with their distinct languages that they created their own written language in various locations, which would explain why human writing, language written down in different places, is so radically different. Because, in fact, it's produced by groups of people that had nothing to do with each other once they left Babel. Also, it would explain...
We're all descendant from the people of Babel, so there should be genetics that show that too, right?
Each of these people developed their own music, architecture, culture. There's distinct differences in all of those things in these major groups of people. I think we can explain much of the diversity of culture through this particular event. I suspect that once these individuals spread out from Babel and remained distinct from each other and not communicating with each other because they couldn't communicate because of their language problem, each of these units was probably very small in size, only a few humans in each family unit. In such a small unit, there is something called genetic drift, which would operate under those circumstances, and just the process of randomness, certain traits would be fixed in such populations, which means that just in the process of people dying and just the weird random processes that might happen, a particular trait will come to be found in every member of that population. That particular family unit would get a particular skin color, for example, just by a random sequence of events. Another one would get another skin color.
What he's saying is yeah, genetic drift. That's how it works. It doesn't work as fast as he thinks it does, or as he's claiming it does here, though.
Another one would get a particular body shape that would be then inherited or passed on to the next generation, and in fact create an entire culture with those particular characteristics. In that unfamiliar world,
yes, he gets evolution. His proposition, as I understand it, is that there are some mechanism within genetics stopping those accumulation of distinct traits within a population from qualifying them as a distinct species or as no longer a member of the previous population.
A world that looked so much unlike the world that came before. These humans would improvise. They would do the best they could at living where they could live. It probably explains why so many of them are dwelling in caves. It's why they first pick up rocks and fashion the rocks into tools. But I believe very quickly in the course of the...
So I'm taking this as the claim that the entire Paleolithic era was supposed to be within the last few thousand years too. I wonder how that holds up with the anthropologist.
In a lifetime, they would actually work their way through increased sophistication until they're working with metals. Once they found the metals, which they're not going to get right away, it's going to take them a while to find those things, and to then mine those metals and produce other types of tools. It's during this period, in just a matter of, people are living for centuries, in just a matter of decades, humans, I believe, are working their way through the entire evolution of culture that we see.
So he's saying that all of our billions of Paleolithic tools found in Africa, and there are a lot of very, very primitive tools from a very diverse myriad of Homo species within our genus, not necessarily Homo sapiens, other tool makers as well. There are so many tons of these stone tools that were just made in this couple of decades, apparently.
So this was a very quick run through the history of life to get kind of a 30,000 foot high view of what happened on the history on the Earth to organisms through time. Both the history of humans and the history of animals is highly tied to each other throughout history. It's also giving us insight into how God has interacted with humans through time.
Yes, the entirety of our Paleolithic record is apparently from just a couple of decades, just a few decades. And then they discovered, so the Stone Age was a few decades, and then the Bronze Age was a few decades, and then the Iron Age was a few decades. Is that the claim? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. How did animals replenish the... Yeah, that was Kurt Wise, devotional biology. How did animals replenish the earth after Noah's Ark, or after Noah's flood? What I find hilarious is that all these creationists are so inconsistent. There's the idea of rafting dispersal is openly mocked in some corners of creationism. So that Kurt Wise promotes this model and presents it as the most likely method by which organisms disperse themselves around the globe after the flood is kind of ironic. It's like, why don't you all argue with each other about this? Come up with a presentable model, and then we can talk. You all are conflicting with each other, and it's hard to keep track of what the claim is when it comes to post-Diluvian dispersal. I will continue to harp on this topic because this is like one of my favorite topics to talk about: post-diluvial dispersal versus evolutionary dispersal, I guess you would call it. So I will be seeing or be presenting more and more of that as we move forward. All right, so that was our segment of Creation Watch today. Next, we are going to just do a real quick little HiveScience segment here about a really cool discovery that was made recently, and I wanted to talk about a little bit because it relates to global warming and climate change in general. Is more of a regional warming phenomena, but the world's largest moth, an Atlas moth, was witnessed in Washington State. Now, this is a moth that generally lives in tropical regions of Southeast Asia. Now, you may notice that organisms that live in Southeast Asia are becoming more and more of an issue for us here in North America, especially on the Western front. I speculate that this species of moth was they generally they lay their eggs on the bottom of leaves, so it could be speculated that I always blame shipping containers and things like that when we get insects moving into new areas where they weren't found before. It's very possible that this Atlas moth that was found here made its way over here as in either its cocoon in a shipping container or laying eggs in a shipping container. Usually they lay their eggs on a food plant, though. That's why I speculate that maybe the cocoon was built on a shipping container or something that was shipped across the Atlantic. That's why these things take hold up in the Pacific Northwest, because most of the shipping that comes out of Southeast Asia ports up there before it moved. I mean, some of it does go into California and such, but the Pacific Northwest is a moist and warmer than it has been in previous decades region. So these tropical it's kind of funny, we're just talking about these tropical organisms can thrive in that area, at least for a season, which is why we see things like the mantises and the hornets and the Atlas moth moving into that area of all areas in North America and actually being able to sustain themselves there. It's the moisture. Now, this would be an invasive species, but They are not, at this point, it's one individual. They're not thought to have been naturalized and generally are not considered to have a detrimental impact on the environment. One of my favorite things about this species is the snake mimicry. So they actually look like a snake coiled up on a branch when they land. Let me see if I can find a good picture of it. That one's not the best. Let's see. Atlas moth mimicry. Here we go. There's some good pics of them doing their snake thing. Let me find them. Yeah, look at that. So you see that and you think it's some snakes. It's really just our Atlas moth pretending to be a snake to scare away the predators. So you don't mess with me, I'm a scary snake. Look at that. A snake. So that's an Atlas moth. They were found in Washington. You are encouraged, if you live in this area, to report them if you see them around. They are not native, so we do need to track what's going on with them and kind of figure out how they're moving into the area. They aren't really known to be invasive or to even thrive in different regions. So I imagine this is an isolated incident. There's also the possibility that this could have escaped from a private collection of insects or from a zoological garden or insectarium in the area, and they can produce a generation. So they could even breed, but they generally would not be expected to survive the winters of the Pacific Northwest. It just doesn't seem that at our current climate that's going to be a possibility. Who knows though? We could have like the warmest summer or warmest winter, ever, and they could establish themselves. That'd be crazy, but not completely out of the question. All right, so that was our hive science for today, and invasive but not necessarily threatening species of moth that has moved into North America. I do not expect that they will naturalize. We will keep our eyes out. You notice that the Joro spider scare, it came and went without much fanfare, because the idea of giant spiders parachuting into your neighborhood is not quite as impactful when you realize at the point in time when they parachute, they're so very tiny you can't even hardly see them. And when they grow into adulthood, they're not all that different from the other invasive spiders in this family that are already naturalized in North America. There are species of moths in North America that do slightly resemble the Atlas moth, but they generally only reach about 1/3 of the size of this animal. So you will definitely know the difference when you see them. Take a picture of it and send it to me if you have doubts. I am good at identifying most animals of any kind. So when I said kind, of any species. Anyway, so that is our episode of Live from the Hive today. Thank you so much for joining us and hanging out as we went and talked about alien mummies and ancient artifacts found in Mexico. We explored the dispersal theories presented by one Kurt Wise regarding the creation model and the Noachian flood. And we've wrapped up with our Atlas moth finding its way to North America. Please remember to be kind. Please remember to take care. And we will see you next week. Bye.